Guess we'll need to recheck our wiring. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name's Brian. Today we're going to continue working on this Dune buggy, and the hope is by the end we can take it for a ride. Not really sure why that generator got hot, but I don't want to have the same fate happen to this one, so I went ahead and put a new voltage regulator on there, which is the same part. I already had it. Shows this being grounded on the old ones, but there's no ground screw, so I cleaned the paint behind it, cleaned the paint off, and verified the chassis of this to ground along with the generator being grounded. So let's try this again. So it looked like it locked up. Now she ain't turning. All right, well, I guess we could take this apart again. So upon further inspection, this pulley had actually bottomed out against the front of the generator and locked it up. I don't think it was an electrical problem. I think it was a friction problem. So I took this apart again, took the old one apart. Took the spacer out of the old one is about 50 thousandths of an inch thicker. It's kind of the same thing I did back here on the fan end. Had to replace that spacer up here. Now we roll easily. I didn't have to mess around with the fan end either before it was hitting. This pulley isn't the best, but we're gonna roll with it for now. So now I'm set up to polarize this generator according to the book. Ground, here we go. Run positive from the battery to D plus and ground the D field. So I've done that temporarily. I can hook up the battery ground terminal to the battery, nothing should happen. I've used my engine starter switch and run the positive through this wire. So I press this button and that should spin like an electric motor. All right, now we're polarized. In a pinch, I guess you can hook up if your fan belt breaks and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you can hook up the generator, only a generator, not an alternator, in that fashion, and that will run and cool your engine, obviously, until your battery dies. Let me get all this put back together and we'll try to start again and see if we charge. Okay, everything's hooked up again. Let's see if it'll run. At least I think everything's hooked up. Looks like we're charging too. So I pulled the top off the carburetor and cleaned, I guess, the idle jet out, and it seems to idle more properly now. I added a fuel filter because I'm not really sure the vintage of that fuel. Tied up some wires. I blocked off the heater outlets, let the engine get some more cooling air, or not waste cooling air anyway. I think we're ready to take our life in our own hands. So that was a bit terrifying. Looks like I need to adjust the brakes, figure out why there's no reverse, figure out why it's so hard to steer. But other than that, worked okay. Only died once. And got an oil leak. I think that valve cover may just not be on correctly. So we know the steering's jacked up. Appears as though the problem's actually in the steering gearbox. You can turn the wheel and see nothing happens on the what attaches to the tie rods. So I guess I'm gonna start by pulling the top off here and see what the carnage looks like inside. I'll be the first to admit I've never had one of these apart, so I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. So I was finally able to unscrew this cover. It's full of like muck and dirt. So it appears as though the worm gear down here turns pretty freely. It's a little sector gear here that somehow is bound up. I'm sure all that crap in there hasn't helped it any. This cover supports the top. I'm not sure that's supposed to be that loose either. So I think we'll just hose her down with some blaster, see if anything loosens up. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to take that steering damper off and see if that is possibly causing the resistance. Really? Not really in the mood for this today. Yeah, that was part of the problem. It's a little bit easier, but it still sucks. So by lifting up and down on it, we get that much movement. So I suspect that bearing or bushing or whatever it is in the bottom is junk too. I think I'm going to recommend a whole new front end. Decided to pull the shifter out and pretty much just cleaned it up and got all the junk out of it and finally got it to work. And got the slider to do what it's supposed to do. It's a lot easier to show you in the vise. So pretty much, you pull the slider up, pulls up this plate, and allows the shifter to come over more, which would get you into reverse. And once that pops back out, you have essentially first, second, third, fourth. You want reverse, you pull up, and allows it to go over. So I'll get this full of grease, cleaned up, and we'll get it back in the car. So the shifter appears to now function. Have forward gears, can pull the lock out, and it actually appears to go in reverse. And based on bumping it back and forth and looking at the fan, it is indeed reverse. Next, we'll focus our attention to the steering box. I'm just going to go ahead and try to get it out of the vehicle and take it apart and see what we got going on. Rag joint's seen better days too. Looks as though there's one clamping bolt under there. Looks like a 17 or a 19. Which appears to be all it holds this in. And I guess we can pivot it around and try to get these tie rod ends out of there. My wife has some furniture projects going on, so we'll try to face this direction. So that's a 17. And that was way easier than I expected it to be. I'm assuming the box is threaded and there's no nut. So it's almost like an exhaust clamp. There's another 17 down on the front. And this tie rod separator, see if we can get these off of this thing. That was way easier than I expected. Now we just get this doggone thing to slip past here. There we go. Let's pour the water back out of it. Hope this noise isn't too much. I have this over here in the bench. I guess the steering selector, I guess it may be a pitman arm, needs to come off. It has a lock, a fold over type locking tab on it. I don't have high hopes of this working, but here goes. I'm talking to the camera. As I suspected. Like butter. I'm sure this will just pop right off. Kind of made a liar out of myself there. Not really sure what's going to happen next. According to the book, that should slide right out of there. So, near as I can tell, this should drive out of here. There's nothing capturing it. Had to get a little more ass for this, but it looked like it was moving. It is now. This is probably not the preferred method. Oh my God. So after several minutes of beating, that finally came out of there. So I'll work on trying to clean up all this mess. And we can see where all of our problems are. Pretty sure some of them are here. Pretty sure some of them are here because this is supposed to turn. So I got this sector shaft out of the parts washer and cleaned it up and sprayed some brake cleaner through it, and it moves a little bit, but not all the way around. I monkeyed around a little bit with these channel locks, and I can get it to turn a little bit. I feel like once I get a revolution or two on it, there's needle bearings in here, and this is apparently not serviceable. It's all staked in there. I think once I get that, it'll run some of the trash out of it and can possibly get it to rotate more freely. So the worm shaft, I think we looked at this before. It's a little loosey-goosey, I think. Probably missing some balls in there. So it's getting jammed up and has all that play. So along with the sector not turning, that's probably what made it so hard to turn. I I can buy a reman one of these for like $150 or not get parts anywhere apparently. Well, and actually, looks like a lot of the reman ones are back ordered or new ones. So we're not out anything. So let's see if we can pull this apart. I'm going to dump the rest of the cleaner out. There's part of the problem. All those balls should not be in there. I should be able to tap this out the top. It's not like I can put those balls back in there anyway. I'll need to find that bearing. So it's been a few weeks. Try as I might to fix this steering box. The real problem lies with the bearings at the top and the bottom. So the race, part of the inner race of the bearing is made onto, I guess this is the worm shaft. And you can't really get those bearings. I mean, you can get them on eBay for like $70 for some new old stock ones. One place I found. And I really didn't find anything to interchange them with because of that fact. The inner size is kind of weird. You can find the outer size and the thickness all day long. But in the end, eBay came through. About the cheapest one I could find. It's about $100 plus shipping, and I'm surprised it ever even got here. So let me go ahead and get this put on here so we can see if we can steer this thing. So I think we're about ready for our maiden voyage, more so than the end of the street and back, or from the parking spot to the driveway. Figured I should probably make sure there's oil in this transmission because none's leaking. Makes me wonder if there is any. Kind of wondered if this plug would come out, but it's moving. It's got some in there. It does not look good. That's some 80-90. This should work. Call that close enough for now. One thing I really haven't looked at is the front wheel bearings. I'm not sure how much is kingpin play, whatever, but I should probably make sure there's some grease in there. And make sure they're not going to fall off. A little bit of excess play, but that'll work for now. This side doesn't feel too bad. It has some grease. And it feels like our tire's lost its air again, so let's see if we can figure out what's up with that. So it looks as though we're having a fuel starvation issue, although the tank is pretty full. Okay, good enough. So it's obviously been a couple weeks. I think we're in the home stretch. One thing our test drive pointed out was the ignition switch is screwed up, which I kind of knew. I have the battery unhooked, but you can turn it and it sometimes decides to turn all the way around. You kind of have to monkey with it to stay in the run position. And also we had it stick in the start position, so it kind of overran the starter. Anyway, got have a new ignition switch to put in it, generic, of course. That should be pretty straightforward. And our fuel starvation problem, I'm not so sure. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but something between here and the tank is getting clogged. So I'm going to take the tank off and drain. There might be something floating around in there. We'll take the tank off and drain it and take a look inside a little closer. Maybe take the fitting off the bottom and make sure it's not rusted out. We got this fuel tank out. Got it set up on some jack stands. Let's go ahead and drain it. Now that's going to take a while. Let me get a funnel. So after way too long, I located a funnel. For Christ's sake. Really? And this is what happens. And we replaced that piece of hose already. So let's pull a piece of hose off the barb fitting on the bottom of the tank. See what's happening there. Oh. All right, so let's investigate. What's going on here? So, I don't know if there's a piece of trash that lodged itself in here. This valve's a piece of garbage. Yeah, whatever it is in this hose. So we ended up draining all the gas, got a new fuel filter, eliminated that valve because it seemed to be prone to clogging. That's what the gas looked like, and we found water in the bottom, so we're just starting fresh. So we're essentially done, I'm hoping. This is my last new part I plan on buying for this. Let's see if it fits. Awesome, it'll be way better than what was on there that kept falling off. It comes with this elbow, which I would assume you would knock that out and it would be some sort of crankcase ventilation, which we don't have, so we won't worry about that. Nice. Okay, let's attempt our final test drive. Now there's 12 volts in the battery. It's a chipmunk.
Oh my God.
Did he get it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Holy
Jeez.
oh my God.
Anyway, all these terminals appear to be loose. Not sure how that happened. So we made it back from another test ride, this time successfully. Didn't shut off anywhere. Fuel looks way better. I'm going to zip tie that up, just keep it away from the exhaust. It's not quite ideal, but that'll work. So anyway, to recap, we started out by getting this thing to run. I don't know, what was that, a year ago? Messed around to get the right fuel pump push rod in it, cleaned the carburetor out, replaced the generator. That had its own trials and tribulations with that, along with the voltage regulator, piece de resistance, the air cleaner, new wheel cylinders, brake shoes, a lot of new brake lines, a whole new pedal setup, fixed the shifter, bolted the seats in with actual sliding rails so they'll slide instead of being sheet metal screwed to the floor. I think we're going to let the owner come get this thing. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. So while we were figuring out the wiring problem on the Dune buggy, we saw our cat race across the street after this guy, snatched him and carried him off. It looks like he survived, just a little traumatized. I don't know where the cat went.